been outstanding.
Please be seated. We're here to acknowledge the life of a great man, Herbert John Henderson, better known as Herb or Herbie. He's got a few other names. The grandkids, I'm sure, call him other names. It's good to see you all. We'd like to welcome Ruth, wife Ruth, welcome. Sister Janice is online. Welcome, Janice. We welcome the children, Kay, Jenny and partner David, Ken and partner Sushi, Sue and partner Kim. There's a number of grandchildren here. The grandchildren, can you raise your hands? Who's a grandchild? There's a few here today. There's probably a number online. Welcome. And great-grandchildren, put your hand up. Come on, who's a great-grandchild? Put your hand. We've got to be able to see you. No, there's a few stubborn ones. That's all right. That's all right. They did a great job. They signed the coffin. There's some nice artwork there. Now, this was for the ones who weren't able to say goodbye to her. So this was a lovely tribute. And as the coffin leaves today, you'll be able to see their artwork. Many of Ruth's family are watching online, and we welcome you. The Millicent sporting family, there's lots of them. Some here, and some online, we welcome all of you. Many Bulldog supporters, they're here as well, and many online, welcome as well. We have Linda West here from the Western Bulldogs. Welcome, Linda. She's bought the 1954 Western Bulldogs, the Premiership Cup from 1954, and a jumper, a Western Bulldogs jumper that Herb wore. In his first year, he was number 1. But in the second year, he got his forever number 25, as you'll see on the jumper there. Anyone else who's here to support the family and just paying tribute, welcome. Let us ask God's blessing as we open this service in prayer. Father, we pray for your blessing. We ask that you will comfort the family and the friends and many people who Herb's life had a great influence on. May you comfort them today. May we have a lot of fun today, listening about lots of stories about Herb and his life. So be with us. Bless us each one. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. We're going to hear a song, Slim Dusty song. Ruth told me this is a song they heard many years ago. They were driving along and they heard this song, and Herb said, "This is the song I want played at my funeral." And the song's titled, "Where I'd Sooner Be." Let's have a listen. What do you think? Does that describe him? There you go. Felicity and Angela, the grandchildren, are going to deliver us a eulogy, please. Thank you.
Herbert John Henderson was born on the 13th of September 1930 to mother Elizabeth Jane Henderson and father Hector Herbert Henderson. He was the eldest of 3 children. His younger siblings were brother Robert, deceased, and sister Janice. He was known affectionately by many names throughout his life, such as a husband, a father, a popper, an old popper, Herb and Herbie being some. But today we'll simply refer to him as Herb. Herb lived a varied and interesting life, starting back in Merbeen, where he was born. Later, he lived for many years in Cabarita, near Lake Hawthorne, where he grew up living a typical life for a country boy. Herb attended Cabarita Primary School, and as he lived nearby, would often hone his football skills after hours on the oval by himself, kicking the football from one end to the other, running to retrieve it, and then repeating it over and over again. One of his tales was with his brother Bob and friends, the Connor boys. One of their favourite sports was using Shanghais, like slingshots, to hit birds. He hit a small bird called a tomtit once. He lit a fire and roasted it, but it had no meat on it, and it was a complete waste of time. One day, the 4 of them walked to a narrow neck of the lake and waded over. they came across a patch of watermelons and they decided to take one. They then walked on a bit further where a boat had been pulled up out of the water. It had 3 homemade paddles aboard, so they decided to take a shortcut home. They pushed the boat back out into the water, loaded it with Bill's bike, the watermelon, the Connor's dog, and the 4 kids. Halfway across, they realised the boat was overloaded. The waves were high and were flooding the boat, so they threw the watermelon overboard and the dog overboard. The dog beat them back. Firewood was the only heating available back in those days, and it was cut using an axe, then brought home in approximately 4-foot lengths on a horse and cart. It was Herb's job, once he was strong enough, to cut it to size so it would fit in the wood-fired stove. The only lighting they had at home was a kerosene lamp or a lantern if they needed to go around the rabbit traps or outside for any other reason. In his teens, Herb played football and cricket for the youth centre's under-18 side in Mildura. At the youth centre, they also did lots of horse and springboard work and a bit of jiu-jitsu, which was great for his football when he hit the deck. In 1949, Herb signed up with Mildura Imperials and they won a premiership together. Following that, he was chosen at centre half-back in a Sunraysia team who played a visiting Collingwood side that year. After his performance in this game, he was contacted by a number of clubs, but he and his parents were personally approached by Footscray's secretary, Roy Russell. He consequently accepted their offer. When he arrived in Melbourne, he was initially boarding at the home of Mrs. McHenry's, who treated him like a son. This was in Barclay Street, close to the Western Oval. Footscray arranged for Herb's shoemaking apprenticeship to be transferred to a Collingwood factory and gave his parents £100 towards those expenses. After his apprenticeship finished, he secured a job as a welder and a rigger at a meatworks. He initially lacked confidence coming to Footscray and was playing in the seconds, but after a period he relaxed, he started playing better, so he was put into the seniors with Charlie Sutton as the coach. Combined, it resulted in them winning the grand final in 1954. Herb also represented Victoria on 5 separate occasions during his playing career in the VFL.
In 1950, through a friend, Herb met his bride-to-be, Ruth Hills, whom he went on to marry in 1953 and soon welcomed 4 children, eldest Kay, Jenny, Ken and Sue. With his Bonnie beginning to get a few niggles and the challenging financial side of playing VFL only being paid £8 per week, he made the decision to look at other options for his football career. He eventually accepted an offer from Millicent Football Club to coach their team in the South Eastern Border League for 3 years. He went on to win the South East Border League male medal in 1961 and 62. Whilst playing football, he also worked at Cellulose, the Apsell construction site as a rigger, and various other employments, including woodcarting in a partnership, delivering Maloney's soft drinks, and selling tyres. Eventually, Herb began work as a milkman. He continued this for many years as both an employee and as a business owner with his wife, Ruth. One of the tasks required was to drive out to a dairy near Rendlesham, which he did in his Datsun ute, collecting bulk milk for that night's deliveries to customers around town. Fresh cream was sought after item, so some of this milk was separated in a hand-operated separator by Ruth and Herb. After this period in 1974, he took over a tank business from Artie Bonshaw, which he did for a number of years. While working in these roles, he also used his talents as a welder to manufacture items such as cattle crushers, stockyards and gates for many varied customers around the district. Herb and Ruth enjoyed camping on the Murray River. They would camp every year for 2 weeks at a time in a 2-room tent. One night, Herb was snoring away and a dog belonging to a man in the van next to them was yapping like anything, keeping Ruth awake. She complained to Herb and he got up and said he would get rid of it. Ruth decided to go to the toilet, so she got out of bed when Herb came back and went to the next room, feeling around for her shoes, but she couldn't find one. Herb asked what she was looking for, and following the response, announced, "Oh, I just threw it at the dog." Evidently, the dog was barking defensively at Herb's snoring, thinking he was a wild pig. Some of the sporting activities that Herb was involved with were basketball, badminton, cricket, golf and bowls, as well as being a counsellor for a period of time. He was also a member of the Millicent Beach Buggy Club, and their beach buggy provided lots of entertainment. It had 2 seats, an exposed engine and a platform at the back for others to stand on and hang on tight. It was well worth the fun and enjoyment, the sand and the sun, especially for family and anyone who came to visit. The buggy's final moment was when it was put into reverse while going down a hill. Herb developed a liking for bees and hives after he was introduced to them by Jeff Gamble. As everything he did, he got very involved in this, having many hives, which he extracted honey from and also hired the hives out to local orchards for pollination. As you have heard, Herb was a very active person throughout his life. Even in the later stages, he would potter around his veggie garden and continue to chop at the wood. Herb is survived by his wife Ruth, their 4 children, along with 12 grandchildren and 17 great-grandchildren. Thank you.
Well done, Felicity and Angela. We're now going to have a look at a photo slideshow of Herb's life. So after that eulogy, that might give you an idea of some of the photos that you might see. didn't. Well, when he did, he snored a lot. Brian Brooksby is going to bring us a tribute. Thank you, Brian.
Well, Herb come down to Mount Gambier and to the Millicent Football Club. But my first meeting with Herb was not on the football field. It was on the basketball courts up in Mount Gambier, because Herb liked to play basketball in the off-season from football to keep fit. And there used to be 2 men's teams and 2 women's teams that would travel during the summer period to play basketball in Mount Gambier. And that used to do a fair bit of travelling, particularly when you had to play early or late, and then come home again to Millicent. As I found out when, late in '64, I was shifted in my employment down to Millicent, and for the first couple of months, until I found some accommodation, I was travelling down daily from Mount Gambier and back that night. So that was when I first met Herb, playing basketball. And after we come to Millicent, there were several other players who had come to Millicent at virtually at the same time as I did. And after discussion, we wondered whether it was possible to start a basketball association in Millicent. There was a small association in Mount Burr, so we approached the members of that committee and the people at a general meeting to discuss whether we could form such a thing here. We had a good response to that, and in 1965, summer season, we had 23 teams entered, 12 men and 11 ladies teams. So Herb was a wonderful sportsman, as we know, fierce, determined, courageous, but fair. He played the game as it should be played in all aspects of his life. In the many games that he played, and we've heard some of those already mentioned. Basketball needed a place to play. We had one night at the youth hall, and we had 23 teams to play. So some games were played on the outside court at Mount Burr, some games on the one night we had in the youth hall, and on a Sunday afternoon and Sunday night to fulfil the games. We quickly realised that it wasn't enough, and an approach was made to the council, who helped support the basketball by having an old tennis court in Academy Drive opposite the fire station, and with the council's help and the help of a lot of the players, extensions were made to the court on the length and width. Sand was put down and lots of working bees. Herb was very good with the welding. He made the backboards and the iron supports for that, as he did later on when the basketball shifted into the old E&W West shed. Herb was a great supporter of this town. He supported many branches of business, of sporting clubs, and many helpful duties to odd people, as Ruth would know and could attest to. It was a great pleasure for me to be with Herb. He was the first president of the league, and I was the first secretary, and a number of other people formed that committee. And we could look back in these later years and see how basketball has progressed in this area, and the magnificent stadium, and the opportunity for many young ones to take part and go forth in their chosen sport. It's a wonderful tribute to Herb and to the early people. And I always think of the little slogan, "From little acorns, mighty oaks do grow." And the basketball certainly grew through that. Herb and I had a great personal relationship. And when I'd visit him, it wasn't just a g'day, it wasn't just a handshake, it was a hug, and a meaningful one. He was a wonderful person, one that I treasured my friendship very much with, and I greatly appreciate Ruth's offer to be able to speak about him. Millicent has lost a very wonderful and helpful person who come to this town and done many, many things to business, to sporting groups and to odd people, and was probably never really recognised for all that he's done. Rest in peace, my friend Herb. Treasured memories, Ruth and family. He might be gone now, but he'll never be forgotten. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those lovely words, Brian. Glenn Tilley is going to bring us a tribute now, please.
Thank you. I was honoured to be asked to speak here today, and so thank you to the Henderson family for giving me the opportunity to speak about Herb and his involvement in football and lawn bowls in and around Millicent. First, I'm going to speak about Herb's football exploits, and then I'll talk about his bowling exploits as well. As has been said earlier, Herb was approached by the Millicent Football Club to take over as coach. Millicent finished premiers in 1956 and 1955, but then two mediocre seasons followed in 57 and 58, and at the end of 58 the club needed to rebuild, so Podge Crozer and Alex Watts went to Melbourne in search of a coach. They'd heard of on the grapevine that Footscray fullback Herb Henderson may be interested. Herb had played for Footscray for 9 seasons, 130 VFL games, member of their 54 premiership team, and had represented Victoria on 5 occasions. After they visited Herb at his home, Herb decided to come to Millicent for the club ball. He agreed to coach Millicent for the following 3 years, and at that time became the highest paid Millicent coach, receiving £850 per season. Herb coached both the A and B grade sides. In 1959, Millicent had a disappointing season, winning only 1 game. Herb had a good year. He was selected as captain of the South East Border Football League Interleague side, selected as vice-captain in the SEBFL Team of the Year, and he won the budget fairest and most brilliant player of the year. After games in Millicent, the players used to meet at the top of the Glencoe Hill on the way home. That was the only way to get to Mount Gambier during winter, because the road around the bottom was always underwater. After a few drinks, they used to meet at the Glencoe Hill, have a few drinks, and then they'd visit the coach on the way home, who always had an open house after games. One night, as a joke, John Spear, Albie McIntyre and Barry Bullman arrived at the Henderson home, swathed in bandages, arms in slings, walking sticks, etc., pretending that they'd been injured in an accident. Herb was a bit worried about his 3 players being unavailable for the following week, but when the players came clean, Herb was quite relieved. Herb always excluded himself from all captain's club trophies, considering he was being paid as coach. Millicent recruited well in the 1960 season. Fred Bolton, Tony Hodgins, Neil McDonald, Clive Stevens returned to the club, and along with new players, Neil Sutherland, Max Brooks, Don Houghton, Bob Arnold, Dale Baker, Ivan Anderson and Noel Gadecki, Millicent went on into the season with high hopes. Millicent showed huge improvement, finishing second at the end of the minor round, but lost the grand final to North Gambier by 15 points. Millicent lost Herb for the grand final as he was in hospital after recovering from a serious facial injury in the semi-final win over North Gambier. Fred Bolton and Terry Krieg were also injured, and all 3 missed the grand final, and it probably cost Millicent the premiership that year. Herb was runner-up in the SEBFL BNF that year. In 1961, Millicent finished 4th on the premiership table, losing the first semi-final to East Gambier by 21 points. Herb again won the best and fairest medal for the league, and he was captain of the budget team of the year and captain of the interleague team. In 1962, Jim Dorgan took over as coach. Herb continued as a player. Millicent finished second at the end of the minor round, but lost both finals matches. Herb won the club Best and Fairest award, as well as the Best and Fairest award for the league. He was vice-captain of the interleague side. In 1963, Herb coached the B-grade side. He was selected in the interleague side again that year. He sustained a broken jaw in the A-grade game against North Gambia, and many thought the injury could possibly mark the end of Herb's playing days. Herb's jaw was broken in 2 places and had to be wired, and the operation took 4 hours to complete. Millicent joined the newly formed Western Border Football League in 1964. After announcing his retirement at the end of 1963, Herb made a comeback in round 4 due to itchy feet and an obvious weakness in the Millicent forward line. Herb topped the club goal-kicking list for the season with 41 goals. He didn't kick a goal in VFL football. He never kicked a goal for Footscray, but he was the leading goal kicker that year for Millicent. Herb once again announced his retirement at the end of the 64 season. He promised himself a season of golf in 1965, but when the football club found itself short of trainers, Herb volunteered to help out. Herb trained with the club in 67 to keep fit and told the club he'd be available for selection if the club was short of players. Herb lined up at full forward in his first game in round 6. He kicked 3 goals, set up 2 others and was named in the best players. He had a busy day on August the 5th. He kicked 5 goals, played a big part in the win over Portland and was reported for the first time in his career. Can you imagine Herbert Henderson being reported? The charge was dismissed and tossed out. He was one of the last to leave the club cabaret that night after staying in to help clean up. At 3 a.m, he was up to commence his milk delivery duties around Millicent, which a lot of people will remember. In 1968, Herb played for and coached the Tantanoola Football Club. Had a good year, winning the Mid-South East Football League Community Club trophy for the Player of the Year. In 71, Herb returned to Millicent, playing 4 games, which entitled him to life membership of the club after 120 games. In the late 1970s, Herb was instrumental in the organisation of the Saturday morning Millicent Primary School's football competition that involved teams such as the Bantams and the Roosters, which we saw a picture up there on the slideshow of him with his team. This competition provided many Millicent boys with their first opportunity to try football. I came to Millicent in 1985 with my family to take up a teaching position. We became friends with Ken and Gayleen through our children, who were about the same age. The kids went to kindy and school together, and then as they got older, they played their sport together. We shared some great times with Ken and Gayleen as our kids grew up. Through Ken and Gayleen, we got to know Herb and Ruth. Herb was a true gentleman. He was quietly spoken, a mentor and a friend to many. He was a champion sportsman and a champion bloke. He took up bowls in 1978 after a distinguished football career in VFL and with the Millicent Football Club. He was actually responsible for getting me into bowls through the Night Owls competition when I played in his team in the late 1990s. After giving cricket away, I took up bowls and progressed through the ranks and was fortunate enough to play with Herb's rink in Division 1, Pennant, for several seasons. I remember going to Narracourt one day to play Pennants. Herb was driving and he told us he knew a shortcut through Manga Road and in past Bull Lagoon. Yeah, you can imagine. We left Millicent on time. Unfortunately, Herb took a couple of wrong turns. We viewed some of the things along the way and we got to Narracourt about 20 minutes late. But play due to start at 1, we got there about 20 past 1. Herb had his own unique style of bowling. He was a tall man, he had a long way to get down. But his delivery was smooth and his bowls always seemed to be right on the jack or very close to it. He was one of the best drivers at a bowl's head, and often with his team down, he would pull out a drive of more often than not, save his team. In later years, when Herb no longer had his driver's licence, the family bought him a gopher. You'd often see him on the road heading to the bowling club with his bowls on board. He'd be down there for hours practising and chatting with those who were there. He'd often be the last to leave, and he often got home as night was closing in. But he always made it home, although he did forget to pack his bowls in the gopher a few times and left them at the club. As an administrator, he made a great contribution to the club. Club president in 86 and 87. club treasurer for 10 years from 88 to 97, treasurer of the tournament committee from 205 to 209, became a patron of the club in 2001 and received life membership of the club in 2010 for his services as an administrator and a player. As a bowler, his record of achievements was outstanding. He won 5 club singles championships, 6 club pairs championships, 4 club triple championships, 7 club fours championships and 6 veterans championships. He also won 3 champion of champions singles, 2 champion of champion fours. His 2011 singles champs was victory at Narracourt was made quite memorable because he cut his left hand with an angle grinder the week or so before. And everybody told him that you won't be able to play, Herb. You can't play, you've got a bung hand. But he was determined to play. He's got Ruth to strap his left hand to his chest, and with the attitude of, you only need one arm to bowl with. He went through the whole day. It was long, it was painful, and he won the Champion of Champions. So that's a total of 28 club championships and 5 Champion of Champion victories, a record that is unlikely to be challenged probably ever. As a mark of esteem and respect for Herb's involvement, the Millicent Bowling Club named its long weekend tournament in January the Herb Henderson Fours Day. People came from throughout the southeast and western Victoria, with all 21 rinks filled with 168 bowlers involved on the day. I'd like to finish with a story about Herb. It's got nothing to do with bowls really. I was driving past his place probably 4 or 5 years ago, so not that long ago. We all remember Herb's yellow ute. He had it parked in his driveway alongside the house. He had a ladder on the back of the ute going up to the roof, and there was Herb up on top of the roof. If you know Herb's place, that's quite a steep roof as well. I'm not sure Ruth was home or knew that Herb was actually on the roof. She may not know until today, I don't know. With all of his success on the sporting field, Herb always remained a very humble man. He was a true gentleman, he was a mentor to many and a friend to everyone. Hundreds of messages have been posted on Facebook remembering Herb. I just want to share one, and it's from my daughter. It said, I have so many special memories of the kind man at the end of our road who looked after the bees. I loved riding my bike past and stopping for a chat. Herb was always so sweet. He will be sadly missed. As I said, he was a champion sportsman, a champion bloke, family man, and one of the nicest, politest men you would ever meet. Rest in peace, Herb. A life well lived. Thank you.
I'm sure he could have done a little bit more in his life. He's done a lot, didn't he? Son-in-law David Smith, would like to bring a tribute, please.
Thank you. I was certainly very fortunate to be welcomed into the family. Met my lovely wife Jennifer, and we've got an extended family here, some of them today. One thing that I quickly realised was the Henderson family, Ruth and Herb, and the children had a very good sense of humour, and at one of the first family functions that I attended, the champagne was brought out and put in all the glasses. They managed to fill mine up. And I took a few sips and I thought, crikey, bloody awful. And anyway, I had to leave the room. And as I'm coming back, I'm thinking, I'm just going to scuttle this, get rid of it, and I'll wash it down with a bit of orange juice. So up and down it went, and as the last couple of drops went down the throat, I realised that somebody had swapped it for white vinegar. I'm not so sure who it was, but just perhaps I could be looking at the person that might have been associated with that one. But the family certainly did have a fantastic sense of humour, and I'm sure most of you have come across that. I'd just like to share with you a post that I put on Facebook. My wife Jenny was with her father Sunday when he peacefully drifted off to join those who had gone before him. A little earlier, our daughter Angela played the Bulldogs football club song, and Herb moved his hands in recognition. As the only bloke in the world who could proudly call Herb Henderson both a friend and my father-in-law for over 45 years, I have to say I've been pretty bloody lucky. Herb and I tackled many building projects together, as well as attending numerous family and sporting events, and safe to say they are all stamped with Herb's trademark laughter. Herb and I helped each other build sheds, renovate, build our homes, tackle many large concreting projects both in Millicent and on our farm. Decade after decade, cut and split large tonnages of red gum for our own fires, plus much for others. And on one occasion I can recall we're out cutting firewood over at Warralee, where we used to live, and Jenny mentioned to me afterwards that Herb was that focused, as we can tell with other things, sport as well as business, but he was that focused on his job, he's cutting away at the wood, and 2 3 to 4 foot tiger snakes slipped through his feet and he didn't even realise they were there. The blinkers were on. Herb and I served on several badminton committees together and regularly sat together at weddings, birthdays, Christmas lunches, etc., sharing stories of years gone by. There's so many fond memories, taking Herb and Ruth down and around Tasmania, each year converting their block of tall grass to a park with our ride-on mower, occasionally helping Herb on his milk round, together catching rabbits by hand under spotlight, Herb helping me shift the centre pivot, build our cattle yards, and many more. To a true champion and a hell of a good bloke, I once again say thanks, Herb, but now, sadly, it's farewell. Finally, to all those who assisted as Herb's final chapter drew to a close, thank you, especially to the care and support given by the wonderful staff at She Oak Lodge, Millicent. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We'd like to give you an opportunity if you'd like to come and say a few words. It's open to the floor if you'd like to. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'd just like to read a little story from my brother Michael, who was unable to be here today. Hi, I'm Michael, Ken's son and Herb's grandson. The memories and tears have flowed, but they have been all happy tears, as every memory I have of you is a happy one, and that is rare. One memory I'd like to share is when you and Granny came to visit us in Darwin, and I wanted to take you out fishing in my tinny. I'd been raving about this spot that I've been catching a few fish at, but I told you it's across the harbour and it may be a bit bumpy for your bad back. In typical Popper fashion, you told me if that's where the fish are biting, then that's where we're going. So off we go early one morning. The trip over was quite calm and really beautiful, seeing the sun rising as we duck into our creek. And that's where the beautiful part stopped. As soon as we set anchor, it was getting hot, and the midgies, which are like mosquitoes, set onto us like nothing I've ever experienced before. After 2 hours, we hadn't had a bite. We're absolutely cooking hot, dripping with sweat, and covered in midgie bites, so we decided to call it a day. We pulled out of our stinking hot, wind-protected, midgie-infested creek into the harbour and realised the wind had picked up to about 15 knots, and it's rough. The next 2 hours we banged, crashed and nosedived through 1.5 metre slop, getting absolutely drenched. Even though that day was a very painful and uncomfortable experience, you smiled and joked the entire time, and that rubbed off on me in a big way. It doesn't matter what life throws at you, it's your attitude that makes it a good or bad experience. There's only two people in life that you need to care about their opinion, the 8-year-old version of you and the 80-year-old version of you. You're an amazing human, Popper, and I know that those two versions of you would have been very happy with how you lived your time here. You're a champion to many and the best Popper to me. I love you, mate.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to say anything this morning? As we prepare to close this service, I'd like to just bring you a few words. Firstly, I'd like to read from a very familiar psalm, Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I want to tell you about hope that we have when we put our trust in Jesus. We can put our trust in him when times are tough, when we are grieving the loss of a loved one and a friend, when we feel the world is very bleak. We need only go to Jesus for comfort and strength. Today, Herb is in no pain and he rests in peace. Ruth reported Herb looked so peaceful when he passed away, the most peaceful he'd been for a long time. And that's great to take that to heart, isn't it? I did some research about the Footscray Football Club, and I found that when Herb was part of the 1954 grand final, the win they had, I found their song, their football song, their club song was different in 1954. And I want to pick out a line. And it says, "We will come out smiling if we win or lose." Go and have a look online, you'll find it. So the club song changed when Footscray became the Western Bulldogs in 1977. Sorry, 1997. Get the date right. Some would say Herb has lost, but many families and friends will say he's won because he's now at peace. Herb would want all of you, all of us, to follow on in his legacy and keep smiling whether you win or whether you lose. I have a poem that Sue's asked me to read. It's called The Dash. I read of a person who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on his headstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of his birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most was the dash between the years. For that dash represented all the time that he had spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved him know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spent our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left and how things can rearrange. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger, and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we'd never loved them before. Treat others with respect, and more often wear a smile. And remember that this little dash might only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be pleased with the things they say and how you spent your dash? Some lovely words there. So, Herb, I now commit Herbert John Henderson's body to the elements, and I pray he will forever rest in peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I'd like to call the pallbearers, please, to come forward. Now, grandsons, first Trevor. Which is Trevor? Trevor's there. Turn around, Trevor, please. Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Trevor is wearing a Millicent Bowling Club blazer, and it has these badges on it: past president, veteran, which is for 70 years old, life member, national umpire, super veteran, 80 years old. And someone said to me that he should nearly have got the super, whatever it is after that, 90 years. It was close to that. We're running out of room, that's right. And you wear it well. Andrew's wearing the VFL blazer. It's an interstate blazer, and it was received when Herb started at Footscray. So also with us, we have, as a pallbearer, son Ken, grandson Adam, and grandson Jason, and Herb's cousin Kath. And that's it. Thank you. Before we move, I'd like to we're going to, after the coffin leaves, and I'll get you to stand in a moment, we're going to do a lap of honour a drive around the oval. Now, you can participate in this if you would like to. You can walk beside the hearse or behind, and so you can feel free, or you can just stand and watch. All right. Would you like to stand, please?
around